Hey everybody, my name is Phil Stamper. I'm the president of wrestling. So happy to be here.
It's that time where we normally have a trilogy, and this is what this is. So, welcome everybody to Now Entering the Ring. I guess we'll call this 301 because this is the third time that we have been together on this show. Um, so, you catch this person pretty much up and down East Coast, West Coast, in the Midwest. Recently, you've probably seen him a lot on Wrestling Revolver. He is the man, the president of wrestling, and he was elected by a bunch of people, more than 3/4 of the people in the wrestling community. He is Phil Stamper.
Thank you, sir. Is this sort of like our Dog and Prez movie? So it's not like Red Dog 1 and Red Dog 2. It's now Dog and the Prez.
Dog in the press, dog in the press. I kind of like that. Yeah, because like the first time that we did an episode, right? You guys can go check it out, right? Now Touring 101. I was like in my first year of like professional wrestling and like trying to figure things out, and I was very like it was very weird, like to try to learn a new skill and like try to tell yourself like how to throw yourself on the ground without like hurting yourself. And then like the next time I had you on, we just started Now Entering 201. And I think you are our second guest. That's what it was. And here we are now with the third one. And this is like, I'm going into my fifth year. And I feel like this probably will be like an annual thing where you and I would just talk just for fun, but catch up. Because more importantly, like we both have gone through like some major changes like since the
Yeah.
last time we talked. So, talk to me a little bit about what's been going on since we last spoke. Because I think the last time that you and I spoke before the show, before we started recording, you're like, I have some things that are coming into works. I can't really talk about them. And then, bam, there you are at Wrestling Revolver.
Because I think at that time, when we hit the pandemic era, um, because of the states we ran in, they weren't allowed to run events. So
Right.
literally when 2020 was happening, Sammy was already in Iowa setting up. The ring was already set up
Right.
for a show that Saturday, and then the world shut down. And so we didn't run another event for like 2 years. So I think you're right. As I process in your timeline and our timeline, I wasn't at Revolver when we first met because Revolver
Mm-mm.
wasn't having shows. And so then, yeah, and then we started running events again.
Yeah.
And it was weird and cool, and some of the things that have happened in the last couple of years certainly have elevated Revolver in ways I'd never expected. The fact that we have so many people from like TNA, from AEW that are regular parts of our roster. We just had Ethan Page 2 weeks ago,
Right.
and now he's on NXT. So things happen very quickly in wrestling sometimes, and it's like we seem to be right on that cusp of it when things have happened, and so it's really really cool. It's kind of magical to see it all come together.
Well, I mean, like the list of names of people who've come through Wrestling Revolver is insane. Like, yeah, Sammy, right, is definitely obviously because he runs it, right. But like like Rousey coming through, Swerve Strickland, like Hangman, like they had their angle that led further into the
Mhm.
AEW storyline that they had going on. Like you said, Ethan was just there, Maria Shavir, like it's just it's an awesome who's list. Mustafa Ali, like bro, like I
Mhm.
could keep rattling off because sometimes you gotta pay attention to what's going on to keep up. And more, and another big name. Well, I don't want to say big name, but he's gonna be a big name one day. Brett Ryan Gosling just announced that he was gonna be coming to Wrestling Revolver as well, and I was
Yep.
like, hey yo, big shout outs to him. And I think I saw Landon Hale say
Yep.
something too.
Yep.
So I was like, yo, I'm super excited for those guys because they're friends of the show as well. We've had them on, we've talked to them numerous times, and so to see them like start get their own ball rolling, I'm like, oh, I'm very excited for these guys as well.
Absolutely, and they definitely left an impression. It was part of the Put Up or Shut Up challenge, where you know what? Let's give an opportunity for more people to get more exposure at Revolver. And like I said, we've been very fortunate that we've been involved with so many names. But I think one of the things that I was glad that we opened up a door to is let's get more people in. Let's get more eyes. Let's get more people here that maybe people haven't been as exposed to, and give them that opportunity to see really how they can shine and stand up. And let's develop more people on our roster. Um, and so it was really cool to have BRG and Landon come in. Babushka was sort of like a hidden third. We've had Babushka, Jeffrey John at Revolver before,
Yeah.
and an opportunity came open where somebody unfortunately had to back out of the event. So we moved some things around and opened up another spot in the scramble match, and we moved Babushka into that spot. And he really, was able to stand up and show out. And so like it's really cool to be able to see now how you can harness talent and like give them that opportunity to shine and showcase and see what happens when they do. And how all of a sudden you see that focus go, zoom, wow, who is this guy that maybe
Right.
I hadn't seen before? And so it was just really, really cool to see that all come together.
Yeah, and it's one thing about you too, which is kind of funny, and I feel like a lot of people don't give you a lot of credit for though, is that you're like this really good talent scout. Like you can find like those guys that you're like they're just on a cusp of like breaking into that next realm, right? Because the way I see indie wrestling, right, is a lot like baseball, right? You have the major leagues, which obviously that's your like your MLWs, your WWEs, your AEWs, your TNA, those guys, right? But
Right.
then like right underneath that, right, you have like the upper indies, and then you have like your mid indies, your lower indies, and then you have the shindies, right? And so you have this ability to find like those fine tooth people, and you're just like, yeah, we're gonna pluck you out of here real quick and just decide to see how you're gonna handle at this level. And if you can handle this level, you're probably right here at the cusp of like breaking into the next area. So
Mhm.
it's cool to be able to like sit back and chat with you about like how those guys like shine and how you find like the random talents that keep poking through.
Um, I mean, a lot of it is the noise that those people make themselves too, right? It isn't just because there's so much talent out there. Like in my brain, as you were saying that, I'm like, oh no, he's gonna ask me like who I'm thinking of or who is out there, and I'm like, ugh, because in some ways, yeah, I'm super exposed to a lot of things that are in wrestling. Some of that's because of the indie calendar, so I pay attention to like whose names keep popping up that I keep seeing. And in other ways, it's well, they're also pushing their own name out there, and they're
Yeah.
also getting more and more travel. And when I say some of those names, people go, ah, well, we know them, and it's like, why do you say it like that? Like when I say names like a Vinny Pacifico or Robert Martyr or Jaden Newman, and people are like, oh yeah, I've heard of them. I know. Oh yeah, they're getting out there, and it's almost sort of like some people don't respect the fact of the hard work and hustle that they've had to put in to get themselves out there and to get
Right.
the work and to keep getting the work. I mean, there's many, many others that are out there too doing it too. Um, and it's kind of funny because one guy I always plug that's out of Texas is Chandler Hopkins, and him and Robert Murder are having a match tomorrow night in Texas. Um, and it's like I want to see that match. It's going to be phenomenal. Um, you mentioned Mustafa Ali. He just went up to Canada and had a match with Carter Mason, and Carter's someone out of Ontario that's been like on the cusp for years. It's like, come on, guys, like pull this trigger on him. He could be that guy, and it's like just waiting for Sometimes it's about opportunity,
Right.
to have that door open. Um, Sometimes it's about avoiding the bad opportunities.
Well,
I'm
it's
looking at
look
my
at
knee. Sorry.
look at someone like, well, let's use Landon Hale, right? For example, like the man was at Action Wrestling, put on a banger match with Mustafa Ali.
Mhm.
Like, and that man, and so I remember being introduced to Landon. I met him I heard him on a podcast, right? Nerds of Wrestling. Shout outs to Del Rio. He'll love it. He'll love it. I keep
I
shouting
love
out the
nerds
show.
of wrestling.
So yeah, Nerds of Wrestling is amazing. But so I saw him there. Listened to his interview. I was like, yo, I really like this dude. And then we ran into each other at Invictus. and he worked Nikolai White, right, at Let Them Fight. And I was very interested in kind of just like following up. So I hit him up. I said, "Yo, come on the podcast. Let's chat it out, and we'll go from there." And then when I moved to Massachusetts, like I already knew someone that I was like, "All right, can't wait." I had a whole bunch of people I was just can't wait to just run into and have fun conversations with. And then just Landon and I, we just hit each other up all the time. So now I see this dude working. I see him traveling. He goes up from all the way from Maine down to Tennessee, out to Iowa, coming back and go back through the whole thing again. And then here he is getting awarded with banger matches with Mustafa Ali. And I'm like, there's a dude right there that like you can clearly see like, hey, he's gonna do something major here soon. And I can't wait to see what he goes through.
I hope so, and that's the hope. Because he's also such a good dude, right? And you like to see when the good guys and good gals like get the look, and they're like the people who like really really deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
That like fills your heart a little bit.
Right.
There's
Well,
hope for us yet.
yeah, and then you look at somewhere like out on the West Coast, right? And Landon and BRG, by the way, like they're not. I feel like in the New England area as well as in the Mid Atlantic, right? Those guys are not anomalies. Those guys, they are hardworking. They're doing exactly what they need to be doing to get to the place that they need to get to. And then you look out somewhere on the West Coast, right? And you see Lights Camera Faction, and you're like, whoa, like this group is amazing, right? And they stand out in the California area.
Mhm.
So it's cool to be able to like, because I feel like lately I've been like watching a lot more of like the indie scene and just seeing talent, and then having promoters come hit me up and ask me like, hey, do you know anybody who works in this area, and what like who would you recommend for our locker room? And then I'm like, okay, well, here's a list of names that I
Yeah.
have for you that I think that you'll appreciate. And recently I got asked about tag teams, and so I was like, yo, from the DMV, are you looking from Jersey? Are you looking from the Northeast? And he's like, yes. So I've just like fed him a list of names that was like, yo, here's a bunch of people that I think you want on your roster.
Mhm.
So it's definitely cool to help. And then I go to you and I watch how you watch like wrestlers go through and like make their names and stuff. And then I'm like, all right, cool. So I want to look for people who have like a positive mindset, but then are working hard, or they have some unique story about them, right? That will help drive them, or the character is really well developed, and then I just feed them to like wherever I think the person wants them. And
Mhm.
I have got burned. I have got burned.
It
It
happens.
happens.
Totally happens.
But yo, so I guess outside of that, like what are some of the things that you look for outside of like just like great work ethic is clearly one thing that you want to see, but what's another thing that you look for to stand out for like those wrestlers?
Um, Randomly, the thing that I watch for is a potential that continues to grow, and that oh, I've already reached the plateau of everything I'm ever gonna do. It used to kill me when I'll avoid some names. It used to kill me when there were some guys at certain companies that I'd be at, and they're like, "Oh, I'm working so and so. It's going to be an easy night." And it's like I get what they meant, Oh, I have a
Yeah.
rapport with this person. Oh, it's going to be so easy or fun to work with this person. But then the way they were verbalizing it, and the way I would watch them wrestle, the quality of their work rate was going down because they weren't pushing themselves or trying to go put it in another gear.
Right.
They were just coasting. And when I finally realized that's the kind of wrestler I look at, was Trey Miguel. The very first time I ever saw him was at a Rockstar pro wrestling show in Dayton, in Ohio. And I was like, wow, I've never seen this kid before. He's really good. And then I saw him like 6 months later at Rockstar, and I'm like, wow, he's gotten so much better. And then he came to CZW, and wow, he's gotten better. And it was like every time I saw him, he just keeps increasing, keeps getting better. Even today, he's still willing to like try new stuff, innovate. He's trying to reach a new level of physical fitness, like, which is like amazing and mind-boggling to see the progress that he's made.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and so like that opportunity for potential to continue to grow and not plateau.
I like, and I think another thing that goes with it too, and I I'm glad that that's like the top thing that you look for, because I know I've met Trey. And he's such a humble dude, like
Mhm.
very soft spoken, but very like open to like pass out information and pass on his intelligence of what he's learned in the industry. And it was something that when I sat down and I chatted with him like quickly, because we had met at Pay Your Dues. He was there for a signing, and I just happened to see him, and I asked him just one question, right? Like, what's the hardest lesson you've had to learn being in the industry, right? And it's a familiar question because I asked that to a lot of wrestlers and a lot of managers and a lot of people. But his answer was always be nice to people as you go up the rungs of ladder. Because when you start coming down and those people are passing, or as you're going up, the people you're passing, when you go back down, you have to see the same people coming back down. And I was like, oh yeah, that's great advice. And see the fact that that was 3 years ago, and I still remember that to this day, tells you that like that had an impact on me. No pun intended, right? But I not that it's that anywhere. But
You mean now it had a TNA on you?
yeah, no, it's TNA. They're gonna be like, we are TNA now. We are not Impact. But no, that was such a cool thing to like be able to sit back and chat with him, you know. And then big shout outs to him too, because you know he recently, you know, he got married. You know, big shout outs to him and Ashley. Uh, but yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think good work ethic is something that's hard to come by, right? And in the wrestling industry, you would think that everybody is like hungry and wants to like chase down the same things, but it doesn't happen that way. And then
Right.
so you could tell the difference between who really wants it and who doesn't. And then like I understand like what's one thing that I kind of took away from this like business so far was I know personally I joined late, and I'm okay. I'm understanding that. And I was like, yo, let me get in this business. Let me hang and bang for about 10 years. And then when I'm done, I just want to be a talent scout. Like, I don't want to do exactly what you're doing right now. Just be a talent scout, be a manager, right? I can do that. I can stand around, talk trash to a crowd, or, you know,
It's so
raise
much
a
fun.
talent.
It's
Yeah,
so
I
much
can do
fun.
all that stuff. But I'm like, yo, I just want to be a talent scout. I just want to help other companies find good workers that they otherwise would have not seen before, and then just bring them on board. Like
Yeah.
recently at the Wrestling Open, and I say recently, but this is like a couple months back. Will All Day was here. I was like, and I've known about Will for like a year and a half, and I just saw him randomly pop up. He worked a spotlight match, and was big happy for him because I was like, yo, I wish I would have known. I would have popped up, and you know, he was like, yeah, man, maybe next time. And I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. But you know, I was like, see him. You know, there's another dude, Darren Hardway. You know, he's starting to come up on here more often. Reggie Collins is coming up. You know, from the
Mhm.
DMV. So I'm like, yo, you guys are getting these cool opportunities to work here at this area. I really want to see more people like you guys from the DMV, like up in the New England area, and then hopefully see you guys keep traveling onwards. But it's that's just the kind of small things I keep talking or thinking about. I'm like, yo, I would love to see like just for instance, right? And it'll be time. It'll be time. There'll be a time when he comes up here, but like Andino, right?
Mhm.
From Maryland. I would love to see Andino get up into the New England area and work at a wrestling open, you know, because I think that his character is just slimy enough that it'll get across. Like people will understand, like he's just
Yeah.
a bad dude. I think, you know, I know some other names and some other people I would love to see work at least at Wrestling Open because it will give them opportunities like on IWTV to be seen everywhere. And so I recognize those things, and like I'm gonna do my best to be a reoccurring face on this. But you know, everything like everybody says, it takes time. But you know, I guess that's where I don't know. I guess I want to keep seeing more talent grow and more talent
Yeah.
want it, but you can't want it for them. That's what's hard. It's like I know you want this.
Yeah. And I have like there's been times um when this isn't saying anything unforgiving, I don't think. But like, I'm involved with MCW Pro Wrestling and they have a school. And I'll get attached to some people like, wow, you have all this potential and I see it and like you're working towards it. This is great. And then the next event comes and it's like, where'd they go? Oh, they gave up. They decided like this wasn't for them. They're a lot of those students are in college age and like they're figuring out life and big major life impacting decisions and they just, hey, this isn't the life I wanted and I'm going in another direction. That's cool. Man, I invested and I wanted to see all this, like I saw this potential and I wanted to see more. That's when it hurts because like you feel like you're part of that journey. But that's their decision, and you have to honor that when that goes away. And you can't like, okay, they made that choice, and like you have to be able to move on too.
I
Um,
know.
and but even in wrestling, like uh, I feel like I'm going to speak bad, and I'm not meaning to. Um, I mentioned Babushka earlier. You know, he did the right thing by himself. He knew he needed to take a break, um, and has come back. And he knew that when he came back, he's like, I have to work for it again because I lost some of that momentum. Totally understand that I'm paying dues, more dues again because I didn't keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
But very cognizant of that. And I've seen other people in very similar situations who step away and then come back going, well, I deserve it and I should be here. It's like, and then don't do the work.
Right.
Like you have to at least put a little bit of effort and start walking that path for yourself. And no, and maybe like, hey, maybe you do need help getting the door open, but you have to then walk through it and then accomplish something when you get to the other side.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's where like I'm at right now. It's like I recently moved from Maryland to Massachusetts, right? So now that's where I'm running out of. But it's like there's like a fear aspect of like starting back over again. And so like I keep taking bookings, right? At least I think working like once or twice a month, right? Whether that's in Massachusetts or that's in Jersey or Pennsylvania, right? Like I'm still like active, but I'm not like as active as I was when I was living in Maryland and I was traveling to, West Virginia or traveling to uh New Jersey, Delaware, or where else was I going? Geez, I was going to a lot of different places all at once, but then all of a sudden all of that kind of stopped
Mhm.
when I moved. And so like I have to rebuild back up. And so, last year I debuted in Maine, which was awesome, right? And then I worked a couple shows in Massachusetts, and then I traveled down to back to Pennsylvania, and then like just slowly I just kind of watched my bookings just kind of go from here to here, and now it's like slowly getting back up. And so it's hard, but you're right, like you have to keep putting into work. And one of the tougher things is like you gotta find a school again. I'm like, fuck. It's like, I still stay in the gym. Like that's one thing that I never got away from. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm very happy with the progress I'm making so far, but I'm like, fuck, I gotta get back in the gym and work at a school all over again and try to build myself back up. So it's hard. And then you're always afraid. You go to a show, you meet with somebody, you talk to them, and they're like, "Cool. What school do you go to right now?" I'm like, "I don't." And then you're like, "I don't want to get rejected again, so I'm not going to reach out to somebody else."
But you have to keep pushing it. You have to keep going out there and doing it and doing more and like showing up. Like that's a huge thing. And we're kind of in this weird I don't want to say bubble because like it is, but it is sort of a big circle. So like when I started in wrestling, there was a big impetus on like you have to be seen and you have to put your face and hands in and like people need to see you. And then like when the age of social media became the big thing, like then it was like, oh well, I see you online, and like I really don't book other people who like randomly show up to my events. Like being bold faced told that by promoters sometimes is like, okay. And now I see it like sort of weird circling back where it's like, hey, I need hands and I need help and I need people, and oh, you've come and helped me. Like that means a lot and I need you here. Like and and I mean, yeah, there's that. At the same time, I've seen people who were burned because they came to help and then they're always looked at as the help.
Yeah.
And so like there's this fine line that you have to wax and wane on a little bit of like, but I'm getting 4 bookings a weekend and you want me to come drive 12 hours to help you do what? Like um and like I've had to face that challenge at times, and there's times I've had to tell people like, thank you but no thank you. um or hey, I've been here for a long time and I'm not seeing the reward, so I got to move on. That happens too, and you have to make those choices too sometimes.
Yeah, and it's something that it got brought up. I saw it randomly in a Facebook thread. And then somebody quoted Brutal Bob, right? Brutal Bob Evans, and they said, help out a place 3 times, and after the third time, if they're not booking you or talking to you at least about getting booked, leave. There's no harm, no foul. They just, hey, you don't got to worry about it, right? So I've been taking that into concepts, and like I go to different shows, I'll show up and I'll help out, and then I'll make a decision whether I want to come back or not, like
Okay.
based off of what I'm watching. So I'm like, all right, well, I kind of like their show, I kind of dig them. Yeah, I'm just gonna go somewhere else real quick and just see what's going on.
Yeah. Which is understandable. Like, yeah, very understandable. You have to push yourself, and if the other place doesn't latch on, okay, I got to go to the next place that might.
Yeah, and it's no harm, no foul, right? To nobody else. It's just that I understand that I'm limited in the time, and I'm trying to get as much exposure as I can through a whole bunch of different people. Because, like I said, like at the end of the day, I want to see a lot of good talent who's not really being utilized, and I want to be able to be like, yo, you should really look at that person, or you should really look at this person right here, or you see the moves that person's making right there. You probably want to get that person too, and it's like I want to help like grow people's bubbles as much as possible if I'm able to. But
Mm-hmm.
also like in the same context, like I want to grow my own bubble too with the same with the same thing.
Right.
It's it's I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm in a weird position right now where it's like, yes, I can go out there, yes, I can work, and if you ask me to work 10 to 12 or 12 to 15, yeah, you can get that from me. But I
And
also want to just help your promotion, like
mhm.
do what it can.
And I mean, on the other side of that too, promoters are sometimes very leery. They're very like, I've been burned before. I've put my heart and faith in some people, and they don't follow up, or they're not my person. I didn't help them. They're kind of helping me, and that's a weird spot for me to be. So like I get it too. So again, it's this weird blend of all the things.
Yeah.
Um, and many times in my wrestling life, like I was the weird outlier just by geographically where I lived. I mean, I started. Uh, well, I was in college by the time I was doing in ring training and getting bookings, and where I went to college was in the middle of nothing, and there was no promotions nearby me. And I was sort of in Western Maryland, and it was like, well, there's the Maryland circle that sometimes goes to Pennsylvania, and there's the West Virginia Pittsburgh circuit, and then there's people in Virginia, and it was like there was some crossing sometimes, but not a lot. And I remember when I went to grad school, I had started a new job, started going to grad school. I didn't have a car, and it was like there's nobody that crossed my path. Like, and what am I supposed to do? And so like for a few months, it was like, I'm stuck. I don't know. I can't even physically get to you. Um, and so it was, and even now, like there's times when it's like I have to be the one in the car by myself to get to the place I want to be because, well, no one else is along my way and nobody else wants to come with me. All right, well, I'm going to be there, and so you have to be the one to make that drive. And for some people, they won't do that. Even when I've offered the door for people to walk in on a guaranteed booking, sometimes people are like, oh, that's a 6 hour drive. I don't want to do a 6 hour drive. Like, why?
Bruh.
Right.
I've done 5.5 hour drives down and 5.5 hour drives back. Recently, I've done this, and so much to the point where, on today's date, which we will not give to you guys, right? But if you figure out when we recorded this show, 2 weeks before, I had debuted at Atlantic All Star Wrestling. Like, I drove 6 hours down for just the thought that something might happen, and got on the show and then drove home and was like, yo, I'm gonna make this happen. And I was like, I want to be a part. There's some promotions where I just want to be a part of that promotion, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it work, and then we'll see what happens. And so now I'm like, I'm gonna keep doing this. I don't know, it's fun, but then you're right, you put that offer out, and then like, you know, things, either A, people want to join you, or B, they don't, and that's fine too. Like, whatever,
Yeah.
like, it is what it is.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Yo, so what is your, so being that you've also like helped promote shows and gotten people on, what were some of the things that got people to stand out to make you want to like get that person on the show? Outside from like obviously like we're talking like quality kind of stuff, but like did someone ever send you like an email or like a video of what they're doing? Like what was the things that kind of made them stand out?
Sometimes, now I feel like I always have to give a disclaimer, and I feel like you might have gotten this disclaimer from me yourself at one point. Like, hey, if you give me a match to critique, I will be very open and honest with you. Nothing's meant to be jerky, and I have to give it top of mind because if I don't, I soft sell it, and it's not going to help you. And so, like, please ask questions. Like, I will try my best to do my best explanation of like what I'm seeing if something's gone wrong or right. Um, like I'll watch a match and I'll give timestamps. Like at 3:15 this happened and this was great and this was not. And like I even sometimes would be like, oh, I really didn't like that your opponent did this or that the ref did this because it got in your way. Because that's also like a tool for you. Like, oh, now I need to know to avoid that or avoid this situation or what to do if that ever happens again. Um, and that doesn't necessarily sell me one way or the other. If somebody sends me like, can I get a critique? That doesn't necessarily sell me on you because some people don't listen to the critique. Um, and so like I know that, and that's fine. And I know that's one of the ways some people are sending me stuff because they think like, oh, this is how I'll get the look. And it's like for a lot of the places I'm at, I'm not the one booking. And sure, I might have sometimes a voice in the conversation, or if my opinions are asked. Okay, that may be helpful then if I have understanding or resource to pull from. But I'm not the one normally booking the talent. And so it is helpful to see some stuff. I think when I start seeing more of the package come together, right? Like it isn't just like, oh, look, they did this cool move. Did the rest of the match stay together? Oh, they cut this great promo, but then they walked to the ring with a stone face and they were almost like afraid to walk out in front of the crowd. And so like, is it all coming together? Like, does the same thing? And I've actually started doing this as a class at Catchpoint, the Drew Gulak Udo Wheeler School of Drew Gulak calls it performance threading, where it's okay. I want you to do a promo to introduce yourself, just who you are as a wrestler. Okay, now I want you to do a promo against this person. Okay, now I want you to do a whole match from entrance to end where you keep that character in through it and how you incorporate character into your match. And talk that through. Like, what does that mean to how you're presenting when you're taking a beating is just as important too. And why it's important. So we talk all that through. And so when I start seeing like those elements come together, not that you cut a cool promo, not that you can do a couple cool moves, like, oh, it makes sense in what they're doing when they're doing a whole match. Oh, I see this whole character that they've presented and built. Oh, wow, look at the whole presentation of the person. Like, that's when I start like, okay, I really like what this person is doing. That doesn't mean like it has to be perfect.
Right.
Because that's some of the fun I think of it too, is you work on it to always improve and get better. And I'm smirking now because there are a couple people in my life that I'm like, man, I think I'm really glad they haven't asked me my opinion on how this is working because I don't think it is. But I love their stuff.
Phil, that's not fair, man. You can't be saying that about me on this air right now.
I wouldn't call you out like that.
Yeah.
Squirrel. But yeah, because it's sort of like, and I'm trying to like be careful in the example I'm going to give because I don't want to like call from a specific example, but it's like, I don't know, you were the down on the luck hometown hero, and now you're a cult leader. But when you wrestle, you're still the down on your luck hometown hero. Like, well, how do these things converge? And so sometimes, but hey, I might like the work you do. Hey, I might like when you do present in a certain way. Hey, I might like the promo you cut. And is it coming together? And if it doesn't, okay, I can give so much feedback. And maybe they are working on it. and some people do really well when they do those reps and they improve and it gets better the next time you see it. Okay, they're trying. I see this new level. Like that's cool to see, and that lets me see like, oh, then they have that potential for growth and change. Um, and kind of like I said, when the people were like, I've plateaued, like this is gonna, I'm working so and so, it's gonna be an easy night. Like,
Yeah.
I'm bored. I don't want to. Why would I want to watch this match now?
Yeah, I don't want you. I don't want to see you do an easy match. I want to
Right.
see. I want to see you get challenged. I feel like that's where I love continually looking back at like. So we can use Red Dog as an example, right? I love like seeing where like it started with like this like serious ass, mercenary that it wasn't connecting with me, and
Mm-hmm.
so we changed the whole thing up, and then you get this like funny ass ridiculous mercenary who's now like cracking jokes and doing promos as like Steve from Blue's Clues, and I I love like just coming up with new concepts and with promos, but I feel like where I'm still improving, right, and it comes with reps, and I understand this, right, is the aspect of like getting your character across as a wrestler in the ring,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like there were times where I'd be in a match and I would be there for my opponent. They would be safe, right? But I just wasn't interacting with the crowd as much. And it took recently a couple matches and thankfully an amazing vet to come to me and be like, listen, like you're doing great. You're there for everything that you need to be there for. But this is what you're missing. And
Mm-hmm.
this will help elevate everything up higher. So it was so cool to be able to sit back with someone and just have that conversation, that open and honest conversation. And I was like, cool. And it keeps hitting me back, but I keep trying to actively remember, like, talk to the crowd. It's fine. Like and the thing was, I remember like I don't know if this ever happened to you, but it happened to me, and I'll even tell her where it was. We were at SWA, and I was working Jesse O'Ryan and Stan Styles, and there was a moment in the match, right, where I knew where we were, and I just didn't say anything. Like there was a part where I was just standing, could have cracked a joke, could have said something. I didn't get the crowd involved, and I realized, oh, this is, and it was only half a second long, but I was like, yo, this is awkward, and then I realized, I was like, oh, I'm here now. This is what this is supposed to look like. This is where your time slot is supposed to be filled in with what you want to do. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily like hit him with a move, because that's not what it was. We were looking for a moment to breathe, and I was like, oh shit. So in a moment I didn't think about that, but when I got to the back and Stan and I were talking, all that came through, and I sat back and I watched the match over again, and I was like, oh, this is where we're at, this is what we're doing, and this is where I missed. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. And it was just the weird click that I saw everything. And then even for me, going back in my match and thinking about it in my head, I was like, there were so many things I could have said and I could have done in like certain moments, and I was just missing. And then when Stan broke it down to me, I was like, oh shit, I'm trash.
Oh,
But it wasn't like, I'm not trying to be like, but I understood like, hey, this was a big learning stone that like I needed to hit this moment. So I was like, this character's gonna start really cranking to the next level now that I've started to realize these moments.
good. um, I mean, I, I struggled with that. I don't know. I was when fortunate when I was more active in the ring. Like I got that early on, so it like stayed with me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started to do some managing, um, I didn't know what to do. It wasn't that I didn't know what to do, but it was like my rhythm got thrown off a bit, and it was like I had to find that pacing again. Um, because where I see managers go wrong is a wrestling event should not be a three ring circus. Like there's attention towards the action that's happening, and you don't want to take away from like the main part of the action. And I get when people from the television perspective are like, oh, we're over here and over here, and we're doing two things at the same sort of time. But even then, it's like this one's taking the bigger priority in the moment. Something happens, and now this one comes into the forefront. Um, and sometimes on an independent event, there's action in the ring, there's action on the floor. Here's a manager doing something, and it's like, no, 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 no. Like this action has to be primary. You're still there, but like this is not the moment to be this loud.
Right.
Like you have to be able to balance it. And like I had to learn that a little bit because this was just a different part of my brain needing to kick in when I was more regularly going to be on the outside. Um, and so, but you have to learn that, and you have to get reps with it, or it won't necessarily retain.
Right.
And what you said too about like the place, when you especially like move into a new place, and there's only a couple of events that you might be working a month right now. And because I had this really interesting conversation with, there used to be a lot more places that would run weekly, and unfortunately, there's not as many of those places. There are some that are out there. You mentioned Wrestling Open. There's TWE that runs their, oh my god, collision course, is that what it's called on Mondays? I might be wrong about what it's called.
I think so.
They're running every other Monday. There's a few other in Tennessee that are like regular weekly events, and so like Renegade in Georgia, like there's a few places that are like that like, oh wow, they're
H2O. H2O has like the Monday night.
H2O, yeah, they also have Monday nights. Normally, I also think that's like an every other, but still like a regular kind of pacing thing. So you can get those opportunities to get reps in, to get in front of people, to like let them see you, let them see how you're doing and performing and like and learning. Like that's the big takeaway. Like, and from a way a crowd gets into wrestling, typically they come in from watching mainstream wrestling, and they're sort of taught how to react as a crowd by watching what they see on television. And so I think it's a little different sometimes when they come to an independent event, but because they've been taught some of the basics by watching mainstream wrestling at home, like now you just have to draw them out a little bit more. And that takes good talent across the board. Not just, I don't just mean just the wrestlers, like everybody on that event helps to pull that together. I've seen bad ring announcers kill a great event. Hey everybody, are you okay? We're going to have our next match. Like, what is that? Like, like that death. Because they should be keeping up the energy and the pacing, and how they drive an event. To me, like I don't know why I'm going on this tangent, but it's in my brain. A good ring announcer to me is like a good front of house manager at a restaurant. Like, they're able to keep the pace and get everything moving. Oh, I see a problem. Let me go make sure the problem gets fixed. Like, they're an active part of what the event is. They're not just there to hold the microphone and go, and your next match is set for one fall. This person and this person. Yay. Like, no, it should be more than that. And there are some really good people who do like a ringleader style of ring announcing, which also is cool and works when presented well, and is another sort of facet of how an event can come together in that way. But it takes a certain talent to do that.
Yeah.
And you have to learn that. And some people get really hurt when they're like, some promoters get really hurt. Like, well, I just used Ned down the street. I don't understand why this isn't catching on. Has Ned ever been part of an event before?
Right. Can you read the crowd?
Right. During the pandemic, I used to do, and I'm toying with it, bringing it back. It's not there yet. I used to do Phil Stamper's Indie Wrestling Party, and like I would do a couple different matches from different shows, and just talk about it. Because during the pandemic, when there's not a lot going on, like, hey, let's showcase some good wrestling. And I remember I had to stop the video one time because the commentary was so horrendously bad. And it wasn't just that it was bad, it disrespected the talent in the ring. And it was like Rajit and Mickey Knuckles, I think, was the match. And like the promoter, or the commentators were talking about getting high and there and human excrement mixed together. And I'm like, what is happening here? And I stopped it. I was like, I apologize. Like, I want to show you the rest of the match because I like the match, I don't know what the commentators are talking about. And it happened again. And I was like, I'm turning off their volume because it was destroying the video. And like the promoter was a little upset with me, and the commentators got really mad with me. And I've never met the commentators because they don't work anywhere. And when I talked to the promoter about it, he's like, well, yeah, instead of paying in somebody who might be good, I use these two guys from down the street. And well, did you see what you got from the two guys down the street?
Right.
This is why you need to have somebody who can do it. And just like wrestlers, commentators need reps, refs need reps, managers need reps, rigging out like your entire pool of talent, and that includes backstage talent, need reps, or it doesn't fly as well.
Yeah. No, it's 100%. And what's funny was like I remember like, and I don't think that people realize like how hard commentary is. Like people, like you said, you just can't pluck two guys from down the street or in the crowd and be like, "Hey, be my commentary team." Because I've done commentary, and I'll tell who it was. I did commentary for HWF, Honorary Wrestling Federation, at their first show, and like, God, I remember like sitting down and like doing color commentary, and I had to be the heel. And by the way, I had just worked face, so it was weird for me to be like to switch on and off. But like, yeah, I was like, you have to tell this story about like what's happening in the ring, because people who are watching along, they're like, oh, cool, there's just two dudes working, and you can, if the guys are able to like work really well, they're gonna do a really good job. But even in WWE, you get guys like Michael Cole or Corey Graves or Pat McAfee, right? JR and Jim. I don't want to leave them off the list because someone's gonna complain about it. I'm just talking about it now, right? But you just need someone to guide them through about like, hey, here's what's happening. Here's why these two people don't like each other. Here's a story that you didn't know that was being tied in. Like the match that I ended up calling was Riot City versus Pure Ignorance, right? And something I had brought up on the show that people didn't realize was that Pure Ignorance, at the time, like they were still relatively a young team, but I was like, yo, these are guys that are fighters. They're street fighters. They're not even wrestlers. I was like, they are literally wrestling against guys who are wrestlers, who are, I don't think they've ever been punched in the mouth before. And at that time, I had said that Machiavelli punched Ron in the face and had some words to say to him, but that's for a different story. That was a full-on receipt that happened, but nonetheless, I was like, see, this is what I'm talking about. These guys are fighters, they're not wrestlers. And like, so it was cool to be able to kind of like tell that fun story. And then we did the Kayfabe Junkies tournament where like Chaz and myself, we did the commentary for it. It was just cool. It's cool, and you're right. You have to take reps, and you have to learn how to do it, and it's not easy. So it's like I give a lot of love to people who can do commentary, either play by play or color, because like it's tough.
Yeah. And yeah. The first time I did it, I bombed. I did horrible. It was I think VCW up in Northeast Pennsylvania, and it was bad. And years later, I got an opportunity to do it with Pro Wrestling Unplugged, and Johnny Cashmere asked me to do it, and I was like, I did it one time before, and I was horrible. He's like, I'm sure you're gonna do good. Like, why don't you like cut me a sample? And I did. He's like, oh, it'll be okay. And I did it with John House, and John House had this, years of experience, and so he knew how to feed me, and also like to take away. Like, so he was really good at balancing me out, and that helped me learn like, oh, like this is the pattern. And so like to the point that now I hate when there's more, if there's a rotation of the commentators, like not just a random guest who sometimes might come in, but like, okay, we're going to start off with you two for the first match, and then the next match is going to be these two people, and then the third match is going to be a combination of you two. It's like you kill any pattern that you've now developed, pattern that you develop with that other person, and it like every match is like starting anew, and I think it kills the energy for the show and for that talent. And so like I've always hated that. And like I realized and what this wasn't bad. Like the guy is super talented. Of course, now I can't think of his name. I did commentary with somebody who had worked for the WWE doing commentary, and I was super nervous because he sort of led with, and I don't think he meant to do it in this way. I took it a certain way. He was like, "Oh, I really like it when commentators do this and don't do this," and in my brain, I'm like, "Okay, am I doing that? Oh crap!" And like the first match or two, I'm like half dead, and I'm like, "What am I doing? Why am I so like reserved?" And so match 3 hit, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go. And I went, and he was like, we hit intermission. He's like, I don't know what changed, but that match 3, like you came alive. That was great. And I was like, I think I was intimidated. And that's something too. Like you, no matter what level of talent you are, like when something doesn't feel right, trust that instinct too. Don't just think like, oh, this is great for the moments that are great. Like if something's not doesn't feel right, you're probably right. Like why doesn't it feel right? And figure that out.
Yeah, I've had those moments where I was actually I was again I was at AEW just recently, and I remember sitting like I was working as a heel team. Um, I remember sitting on the buckle and just like I was like, I don't want to just stand here. Like I know I could be talking, I could do a lot. So I remember looking at out into the crowd. And I saw this. I saw a dude with a Dallas jersey, right? And I'm not gonna mention his name. He knows who he is. And I saw him, and I just like, I was like, "Why are you wearing a Dallas jersey?" I was like, "We're in New Jersey." And he's like, "We're gonna win tonight." I was like, "Win what?" And I looked down at the kid. I was like, "You would think that he's gonna be a Nets fan, right?" And the kid looked at me. He's like, "You suck." I was like, "You're adopted." And like from there, like everything kind of just let loose. I was like, "All right, I feel like I'm at home now." Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting involved with this crowd. But yeah, I was like, at first, I remember just standing there and just like, I was like, I don't want to just, and it was only like 30 seconds. Like, I don't want to stand here and just not say anything to people. I'm just start talking shit as soon as I get the chance.
Yeah.
So all worked out at the end. And in fact, that promoter hit me up and was like, "Yo, I want to bring you back." And I was like, "Awesome." I was like, "I'm there for whatever you need." So it was a lot of fun. Yo, so let me ask you, right? How long do you think it was before you got the confidence to like reach out to like another promoter and like offer your services?
So the way I got into the business was a little bit different than a lot of other people's routes. So I had started working in the back
Mm,
for promotions because I was in college at the time, and I had to pay for one or the other. Didn't have enough money for college and training, and so I was like, well, I'm going to go do college, and I started working in the back for companies, and then I started to do training later. And so by that point, I was already kind of like connected to some people, and so when I got the okay to like, okay, you've completed training and you can move on and like look at other stuff, cool. And so I just sort of started reaching out. Um, and I that's how I also learned my the first place I went to was not good. And like, okay, I knew it. I felt it. Like the match, like it's funny because like watching the match later, I was like, visually, it's not bad. Being in the moment in the ring and the way we communicated and like the way things moved and felt, I was like, this wasn't right. And what went wrong? And fortunately, the person in the ring didn't just try to teach me a lesson in the old school way, like actually like talk to me and like knew I was like, hey, I'm frustrated and confused because now I know that something didn't go quite right in the way I got taught. So like I had to learn again. Which hey, sometimes happens and sometimes people have to go through that in order to get better. So I never like we've talked about a lot about like things I like and things that are good, but like when I know things are going wrong, like okay, what's the reason? Why didn't this go as well? What could have been better? Were they just super nervous? Was it their first time doing this? Were they sick and they didn't really admit it? Are they working around an injury and that's why? I watched the match Mania weekend. I went to an event that I had nothing to do with, and just watching, and I saw somebody coming out, and I'm like, oh, I'm really pumped for this match. And I was with a couple other people, and I was like, oh gosh, you're gonna love this guy. You're gonna love him. And I'm watching. I'm like, this match is a train wreck. It is falling apart. And the guy was like, I was like, something is wrong. And like a couple days later, a clip comes out of the guy taking a I missed this chair shot he took, and he took it like the guy like chucked the chair at him and it went sideways into his head. And so he was super concussed. And it was like, oh, so that's why he was still moving to get through the match, but that's why things weren't clicking in how he was doing in the ring, because he just was not all present. Yeah. So it's like kudos for him for finishing the match. At the same time, like, ooh, super concussed.
Yeah, that's also a thing too. Like, you have to pay attention and you be like, hey man, listen, like, when you have those things happen, like, go home. Just go home. Don't. I know, like, you're scheduled to work another, you know, if it happens 3 minutes in a match, I know you're scheduled to work another 8 minutes, or you're scheduled to work another 9 minutes, whatever. Go home, because I remember, like, I got concussed at an event, and I knew I was out of it. And I even said it to the other wrestler, and you guys can figure that out, because I talked about this story even with the people that were associated with me. I told him, I was like, yo, I'm loopy. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out where we are. Just tell me what you need me to do, and then just throw me into a buckle, right? And I'm just gonna stay. And that's exactly what happened. Like, we're fortunate enough, we're at the end of the match. I threw a couple punches, picked the person up, and he threw me into a buckle. I laid in the buckle, and I was like, I'm not moving from here. And then even afterwards, I was talking to the promoter. I didn't even tell the promoter. Like, I had left, and the next day, I wrote the promoter. I was like, yo, thank you for the opportunity. Sorry I didn't give you my best performance. They're like, what are you talking about? The match was really good. I was like, I was concussed. They're like, what? I was like, yeah. And I drove home. I was like, yo, it was all sorts of bad juju, like, just all over it. But it was one of those things where you gotta know, like, hey man, this is where the match has to stop. We gotta go home, because unfortunately, like, I'm not okay, and I want to make sure that everybody else is okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you get concussed, go home. Don't tough it out. It never works well, and people want to do it, but it's not a thing. Save your brain. But no, I want to say thank you for being our first guest on this round 3. I guess I don't know what to call it yet. This is our first run for this 301
junior year. Now I'm thinking of all sorts of goofiness.
Yeah.
Red Dogs Declassified.
Hey, I kind of like that. I kind of dig that. That's kind of nice. That's kind of nice.
There you go.
It's funny because with this show too, like, I have intentions of, like, bringing back, like, a bunch of other people too, and just having more fun conversations into, like, a 301. But really, like, at this point, like, when you get here, it's funny because I've heard a couple things, right? Like, Steve Austin was talking about this on his podcast, right? Like, when you hit that 10-year mark, like, something clicks and you just take off running. And I've heard other people talk about it, that same thing, at, like, the 5-year mark, right? Like, you'll hit your 5-year mark, and then something clicks, and then you're like, all right, cool, like, I'm running on all cylinders. And so I think for me, doing this show, like, I feel like it helps me get there. Like, I'm understanding, and when I talk to people about wrestling more and more, like, I'm like, oh, okay, I know where I'm messing up, and I know where I'm understanding it, know what I'm doing now, so I'm all right. Like, I'm putting in the 10,000 fucking hours that I need to.
Yeah.
But no, what I want you to do is I want you to let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you for whatever you got coming up.
So right here, there you go. There's my hand. Social media handle Trust and Phil. You can find me pretty much on any social media platform, Twitter or X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat. I'm there as Trust and Phil. Always plugging away to try to promote what's going on out there. I might be on a small sabbatical at the end of June, but we'll see. I'm waiting for word on what's going to happen next. So,
well, there you go. Trust in Phil. That's where you guys should be at. Go check it out. He's always got great stuff posted up, and and he's always doing fun stuff, whether it's getting skewers in the head or falling off of a ladder, or just watching him work in the ring anyway, and beat people up, because that's cool too. Or you can watch his TikTok channel and watch him randomly put people in submissions, because that's always fun too. I do like that.
I need more content.
But for us, that will wrap up what we got going on. So you guys know what to do. Tune into the next episode and be there, or you're literally following us on all of our social media platforms. You're checking us out on YouTube. You even subscribe to our channel. You're following us on Spotify, checking us out on Amazon Music. You're even listening to that one thing that has the dumb jingle that goes iHeartRadio or whatever that thing is. You're leaving comments, leaving likes, sharing this with your family, your friends, your enemies, because we love haters too. Doing all that stuff where you're buying our merch, waiting for this episode to end, waiting for the outro, and then you're choosing another episode to listen to. Kawaii.